dolphin trainer at one point you wanted to be.
Really? I don't remember that at all.
I remember that. I remember that. You wanted to train dolphins at SeaWorld.
God, I was such a weird kid. I'm Carsyn, an equine photographer.
And I'm Calyx, a performance horse trainer.
And we're sisters. Welcome to Split Reins, a podcast where we bridge the gap between two very different sides of the equine industry.
This is a place for real talk about the industry we love and the parts that drive us crazy.
Hey y'all, welcome to Split Reins. This is our first episode. I'm so excited to have you guys here. Calyx and I, we have decided to do this podcast because we both work in the equine industry, and it's very interesting to see two different sides of how that all works and, the duality of it all.
I think this is a great opportunity, to bring either the public who's not so familiar with the equine industry and or just to share our experiences to other like-minded people who are in similar situations. It's a very broad industry. I think the depths of it are very deep. And I think people who aren't even well acquainted with the horse industry, but might be acquainted or, professionals in some other industry can find some similarities with how everything's ran and how similar a lot of our situations can be to other normalized jobs. So
yeah,
I hope that this podcast can bring some light to being more than just a horse girl.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, this first episode is just kind of going to be an introduction to both of us. We're both part of the industry, but we're also sisters, and we just absolutely love to yap. So we're going to share kind of our introduction into horses in general, how we grew up and how that kind of shaped us into our businesses that we have now, and kind of the ways that we separated, but then yet kind of stayed the same, even with our writing styles. So first off, I'm Carsyn. I own 10R Photography. I am the lead photographer. I'm an equine photographer by trade. So I do a lot of horse shows and stuff.
I am Calyx. I'm owner-operator of Tenhaken Performance Horses.
So yeah, Calyx and I, we grew up in the horse world. Calyx was definitely in my brain. You were 110% like into it more than I was, because I have like so many hobbies I can't even count them. So it was kind of cool to kind of watch you like really take it and grow and run with it and then become the person that you are today. So
I think,
yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
I think in a lot of ways we fed off each other. And, I can take this so far back. Being part of FFA and 4-H and stuff. I'm not sure. Were you ever in FFA? I can't remember.
I was not in FFA.
No.
No.
But regardless, doing projects, and this goes, this extends beyond the horses here. Photography, if you don't remember, the both of us kind of, toyed around a little bit with photography, and you obviously took that a little bit more seriously than I did. And we always just fed off each other. It was never an extremely competitive nature between us, I don't think. It just was, I think part of it had to do that we're so close in age, and we have a pretty good relationship growing up. I think our early years were maybe a little rough and spiteful, but we soon, I think we quickly became really good friends, and we've always kind of remained that way. And so each of us found our own interests, but then also tried to share it with each other. And so I think in a way, me with the horses helped you spur an interest or maybe a want or drive to kind of stay in it with us all, obviously our mom had a huge role in that, and grandma. So, we all just kind of fed off it.
For sure. Yeah. So yeah, in the beginning, it was so funny because in the beginning of everything, we both started off Western Pleasure.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
kind of just, going off and doing fun and open shows. And we were both Western pleasure because, that's what grandma did and that's what mom did. And then you kind of, I don't know, you got into gaming a little bit before we started jumping, didn't you?
Well, I'm trying to remember the whole timeline to that. I remember watching, what was it? Was it the Pony Club? Do you remember
Oh,
those?
yes. Yeah, yeah.
So I remember someone for Christmas had bought us, if it was mom or grandma, I don't know, but had bought us those DVDs, those movies, Pony Club or whatever, and it kind of went on throughout there. And I remember being like 6 and a half, 6, 7, somewhere in there, and telling Mom, I really want to jump horses. I really want to be like these girls on the Pony Club. But at the same time, around that fourth grade, fifth grade era, in 4-H, everyone, it was the cool thing to have the really fast horse, right?
Right.
So I, of course, wanted to get into the gaming and barrel racing, pole bending aspect of things, which mom was 3,000% against.
Yes, for sure, for sure.
And I remember trying to tell her, and God bless her heart, she worked so hard to help us succeed,
Mhm.
and we had all of this time and investments into our pleasure ponies. And I remember sitting in the truck with her and looking over from the passenger seat and saying, Mom, I want to quit or I want to quit pleasure horses, and I want to go into barrel racing. And she just looks at me and she's like, there is no way, no way I'm letting you run barrels on this pleasure horse.
And
You
I was,
know,
I was sitting there and I didn't start loping until I was like 10 years old. So I was like,
I
Mom, I'm
remember that.
perfectly fine. I am perfectly fine staying doing the slow stuff. I'm like, I got you, girl.
I
But yeah,
remember that.
yeah. But then so yeah, we did pleasure. And then as we got older, we decided that we were going to start jumping. And yeah, obviously you spurred that and you were so good at it. And I sucked so bad.
That's not true.
That is
I
so
think,
true.
no, it's not. You just weren't set up with the right horses. I think in some aspect of it. I I don't know. I had such a control issue. And so in that way, I fought with my horses all the time. I just fought and I fought and I fought. And it made me a very defensive rider. I mean, I was able to go out there and get something done just because I was spiteful, but it made me a very defensive rider. And it caused a lot of habits that I still have to remind myself of today.
For
So,
sure.
so in that way, I don't think any one of us were any better than the other. But I do remember that one day. Do you remember this horse show? Down at
Oh,
Valley Park in Des
yeah,
Moines.
the one that I fell off like 7 times a day and it was a 5-day show.
Oh, Carsyn, I felt so bad for you.
I
I
ended up
mean,
spraining my ankle and mom was like, I remember I got dragged by, it was her name, Star was the horse that I was riding. I got dragged by Star after falling off. I could not stay on this horse any time that I would go out there. And I hated it because our trainer was just like, you have to go do this, Carsyn. You have to go out there. And I'm like, can I just do the flat classes, please? Like, I'm so
oh,
good. Like, please just let me ride this horse.
but that
And
mare, that mare had everyone's number. She was
uh
such a crappy mare to try and
and
get done in
yeah.
the show pen with. I mean, you want to talk about a horse that ducked out, and just
Ugh.
every chance she could be to be crappy, she was going to be it. And so she had
And
your number from the start.
yeah, and I just remember, and I was so small back then, and I
Mm.
just remember Lori being like, "You have to just tell this horse to jump this jump," and I'm like, "Can I just get a horse that'll do it whether or not I'm ready?" Like I distinctly remember having a conversation with Lori, like, "Can you put me on something that's just gonna jump whether or not I go over with it? I just want the horse to jump. Like I'll stay on. I just needed to jump because yes, she would just duck out of everything, and I wasn't doing any more than like 2 feet, and
No, right.
and I
And for
just kept
reference,
falling off.
and for reference, for those who are listening, Lori was our coach. She was our English
Yeah,
coach. Our
and she was amazing. She was
oh,
awesome.
she will go down as a saint. I
Oh, for
mean, she
sure.
just was a lovely, lovely lady
And so
and
freaking
so
funny.
kind. Oh my gosh, so funny. I mean, you want to talk about someone that really never grew up, but
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
in
And
the best
yeah,
way possible. I mean, she was always just like her entire life was fun. You know, she
yeah,
never had a bad day, it seemed. She never was stressed. She never, you know, so in that way, she was a very lighthearted lady and still is to this day. And
yes,
so
for sure.
she was an awesome coach,
Yeah.
awesome coach.
But God,
And
she just that week that I at that show, I mean, she was just like I didn't know if she was pissed off at me or just was like embarrassed,
oh, she wasn't.
but no, I
There was none of
remember
that.
that one bad fall that I had. And I came out of there and I was limping, and I bet you everybody at that show was just sick of seeing me on the freaking dirt. And I was limping out there, and I got checked by the nurse, and of course mom was like, "Ah, she's fine." And I just remember my ankle swole so bad. We were back in the hotel room and it was black and blue, and
Well, you remember
I just remember going back the next day and showing Lori my ankle, and she's like, get your ankle in a boot. You're showing the flat glasses." And I'm like, "Woman, I can barely walk." So anyways, that was the day I decided I was done jumping. I'm
I
not
remember
joking. I
that.
was done after that. I don't think I went back to another. I went back because we tried dressage with me, and I just, you know what, I just was like, you know what, I think I'm just gonna stick with my Western pleasure horses. Thank you so much. But
I
then
felt bad.
you, well,
Well,
I didn't, it was, that was a you thing. Like you wanted to do it, and I think mom was like, hey, Carsyn, I learned a lot. Like, I'm not gonna say that I hated the jumping training that we did and all that with Lori, but you definitely were the one who was like, I want to do this, and I was just kind of along for the ride because I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. But yeah.
in a way, though, I mean, that's kind of always been my style. I've always been intrigued by all of the aspects of horses, you know, as far as the performance portion of it goes. And, you know, I've done everything from, you know, a little bit of saddle seat with Fred Went and,
Mhm.
you know, the jumping, you know, the equitation and the hunters and, you know, the jumpers with Lori and reining and cow work and all of that. And it's just, in my eyes, I've always found it, um what's the right word? I've always just found it interesting to see how each discipline has the same fundamentals to a certain aspect. And while the goals are different, there's just a fundamental line of what it is to be a horseman, and what it is to, you know, actually go out there and work with a creature that can't talk to you,
For
and
sure.
to be partners with that. And so that has always been something that's been up my alley and that I always enjoyed.
Right. And I
But
think that is what makes you such a good trainer, is because you've done basically everything. And you've swung your leg over a lot of horses, a lot of different breeds, a lot of different personalities, and I think that just is kind of like, well, while that's kind of what a trainer does, I think it's different because it's like, you've ridden the jumpers, you've ridden the saddle seat horses, you've done the pleasure, you've done, cattle work and reining and all that stuff. And I think that that's what makes you like so good at what you do, is because you have, you're not just one track. You know what I mean?
right. I think, you know, a lot of trainers share a very similar story. You know, they all, not all, I shouldn't say that, but the majority of trainers that I have met have a very versatile background. And I don't think that's just by chance. I think that there is an, you know, with horse trainers, no matter what side of the spectrum you come from, we all share that same interest. I mean, we just love to figure out the brain of a horse, you know, and we're always searching for more. You know, we're barn rats is what we are. I mean, we
Mhm.
just we love to be in a barn, love to be, you know, with the horses and figuring things out, and um problem solvers, I suppose, of that nature.
For sure.
But
For
yeah,
sure.
I think the jumping really helped you in that aspect, though, because it gave you it probably didn't give you a ton of confidence,
No, and I
but
still don't have confidence from that. I'm still freaked out anytime my horse bucks, and that's why I don't ride anything more than Poppy.
no, but it gave you an opportunity to have a better seat, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, I don't know if you necessarily got that opportunity with the pleasure horses, and in this way that we were a little bit different growing up on the farm as kids. You know, do you remember our old pony, Buddy?
Yes, I do
Did
remember,
you ever
buddy.
ride Buddy?
I was with you on him when we did double and we fell off going down the ditch.
Well, I guess I don't know if I remember that, but
Well, Dad
Buddy
does.
was well, maybe I do. But anyway, Buddy, he was such a terrible pony. Oh my gosh. I mean, you want to talk about your basic Shetland pony, that just would buck every 2 steps to try and get you off and go back to the barn and, you know, eat his hay. But you know, other than that, I think mom always did a really good job of setting us up for success in whatever way
Yeah,
that she could, or
yeah,
whatever way that she was able or capable of at that moment. And
for
so
sure, for
we were
sure.
very fortunate to grow up. And while we didn't always have finished horses, and the majority of the time our horses weren't finished, but they were safe. You know, they gave us,
Yes,
it was a
yes,
curated environment in which that we could learn and feel safe from, but that you know, the jumping is really what got the both of us out of, you know, our safety box, so to say. You know, there
yeah.
was a lot of times where we both took horrendous
Oh,
falls. And
terrible.
I'm surprised I haven't, you know, I'm surprised I haven't broken anything major, that you hadn't broke anything major, because yeah, that one day you fell off.
Oh,
I
just all
remember
the
you got
time,
dumped all the time that
all the
day.
time.
I swear we counted it like 13 times. And then you got back.
Yeah.
Do you remember getting all that Ben Gay from the pharmacy?
Well, I had to. I was
I
so
know.
sore. I was so sore.
Uh,
Yeah. I
but
don't know.
anyway.
I think people were just like, I'm so surprised she's still writing.
I'm surprised you stuck with it after that day.
Well, yeah, there's that stubbornness that we have, so for sure.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, we've been extremely lucky with the horses that we've had. I mean, we've had just horse after horse just be phenomenal horses. And they weren't like they weren't expensive. They were just like they just happened. We got them and they were amazing and
Well, it didn't just happen.
well,
Mom
but
has always had a good eye, you
right,
know,
but
and that, you know, we were very fortunate, yes.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
will always be so appreciative of how hard mom worked to do that for us,
For
because
sure.
it wasn't
For sure.
easy.
Yeah. And we both owe her just so much. And grandma too, because, you
Oh,
know,
for sure.
yeah. Yeah.
And that was another thing. Mom didn't want us to ride. I mean, mom had been burnt out. She had, you know, a long history in the industry itself, showing horses and training to some aspect of her own, and working with, you know, trainers and coaches and whatnot. I think, you know, at some point she just got burnt out from it. And while we always grew up with horses, you know, we didn't start really showing, well, I should well, and that's what I'm trying to say here, I guess, is that grandma actually behind mom's back is really what happened, got us into the showing. I remember,
Yeah.
do you remember that talk that we had in the living room the one time with grandma, mom, and me and you? And grandma was begging mom, "Well, just let me take him, just let me take him,
Yep.
show horses, whatever."
Yeah.
And mom was so
Yeah.
against it. And she was just so worried that we were going to get burnt out. You know, I think mom really wanted to share
The love
the
for it,
the
the
love for it.
enjoyment,
Yes.
instead of
Yes.
like the I don't want to say like dirty work because it's all kind of dirty work, but like the more tedious side of it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Um
Yeah.
And so I'm very thankful for grandma too, because without her, I don't think we would be where we are today.
Right.
And, you know, I say that just as much on, you know, in the case of her mom as well, but, you know, grandma was the one that kind of on our weekends with grandma, she stole us away and we went to a horse
Right.
show and
Right.
don't tell your mom you're here.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly. Well,
And
and I
she put us on.
remember, yeah, and I remember, when I was younger, I actually didn't want to show. I hated it. Like I didn't want to brush my hair, put it in a ponytail or put it in a bun. I
Oh,
didn't want to look pretty. You couldn't put me in the little vest that they had or, the chaps. I got so hot. It was terrible, it was miserable. And so I didn't really want to show. And I think, I don't know what was the turning point was because I remember heading to one of like the HII shows and, mom's like, Carsyn, you don't have to show if you don't want to show. Like, you don't have to do this if you don't want to do it anymore. And I think that that was kind of like a light bulb moment for me where I'm like, oh, like,
I'm
I
not
could
being
just,
forced.
I'm not being forced. Like, I could just get out of this whenever I want to get out of it. And I think that actually made me love it more after that because I think then I kind of matured a bit.
Well,
Um,
I think it took the stress off of you. I mean, you weren't doing it for mom or for grandma anymore. You had that out. And so then you started doing it for yourself. I mean,
yep,
I think it helped you find the enjoyment in it because you were no longer pressured to, you know, be a certain way for someone.
right, right. Yeah. So yeah.
So,
Um, But anyways, we should probably start talking about
yeah,
the
yeah,
business
I
side of
agree.
things. So I'm just gonna ask a few questions because we're gonna talk
Sure.
about kind of you and your journey first, and then we'll get into mine. So when did you realize that you started wanting to make like the whole training thing a career? Like, was there like somebody who, I mean, obviously I kind of know the story, but was there like a specific person in your life that kind of pushed you to do this? Like how did you decide that hey, I want to start training? Because you didn't always want to do that.
No, it's I remember this day like it was yesterday. I was 10 years old and me and my grandma had so this was back when I wanted to show AQHA, American Quarter Horse, the American Quarter Horse Association affiliated shows, whatever, and I really wanted to try to be, to get more competitive. And I remember sitting down and having a conversation with mom about this, and she's like, "All right, well, we need better horses. What we have just won't cut it." And so she started looking for some horses, brought grandma involved grandma in this whole thing. And mom found Reba
Mhm.
and grandma found Rosie. And these were, you'll find out later that we bought both of them. But I remember seeing photos and I told grandma, I said, I really want to go see this Rosie horse. And you put a sorrel, plain as day mare in front of a, super cute, flashy little dun mare with,
Yeah.
white
Yeah.
on her face and white socks and whatever, and she's cute and she's pretty. The 10-year-old's gonna pick the pretty one all day
Oh, for
long. So
sure. For sure.
I remember this day like it was yesterday. Me and grandma went out to go see Rosie. And I hadn't yet at this point seen Reba. Um, and we tried out Rosie. She rode fine. She was young. I think she was 3. She was a little behind. I don't think she was started until she was 3. I don't think she was started as a 2-year-old. Anyway, we got back in the car and we're driving home. And grandma gets all excited and she smiles and she looks at me and she's like, "So, Calyx, what do you think?" And I'm like, "Grandma, I love this horse." I love
There's
this horse.
foreshadowing here. For
Yeah,
those of you who don't
it's
know, we're laughing because
foreshadowing.
there's
Yes,
foreshadowing.
because this was the worst mare in the world.
She was not
um,
great. She was not great.
she was such a crappy little mare, but that was the day where I think me and grandma were kind of talking about horse training and whatnot. And I remember clear as day just turning towards her and saying, "Grandma, when I grow up, I'm going to be a horse trainer." it wasn't this great big realization. Um, it's just like I had already made up my mind. That's just what I was
Yeah.
going to do. And I didn't know. There wasn't a ton of weight to it at that point. I mean, how could there have been as a 10-year-old? But I just remember turning to her and saying, "Grandma, I'm going to be a horse trainer." And then I got the whole, "Oh, don't do that. Don't say that. You're not going to be a horse trainer. You're not going to make any money. There's no money in it. It's a terrible, terrible job, whatever." And I remember her just trying to tell me, "You're not going to be it's not going to work out, whatever."
We love you, Grandma.
And oh, for sure. And I think, honestly, if a 10-year-old came up to me and said, "I want to be a horse trainer," I wouldn't maybe say, "No, you're not,"
No,
but
you're not.
probably say, "Well, check back in with me when you're, 15, 16,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah. Yeah, I think
and
at
maybe we can have a
me
longer
being
discussion about what it is to be a
yeah, I
horse
think
trainer."
at 10 years old, I think I wanted to work at like Taco Tico or something.
You wanted to be everything
Or a
from
baker, or I don't know,
yeah,
something under the whatever.
a dolphin trainer at one point you wanted to be.
Really? I don't remember that at all.
I remember that. I remember that. You wanted to train dolphins at SeaWorld.
God, I was such a weird kid.
But no, I mean, it was no great big realization. There was no one person that I respected so much so to the point that was like, I'm going to be a horse trainer. It just, I obviously people were able to make a living off it. I knew it was a career path. It
Hmm.
just, it made so much sense to me to just, I love the horses so much. I find a ton of enjoyment out of it. It's something that's always been a part of my life. So why not? Um, and why would I? This wasn't a realization at 10 years old, but further down the line, why would I spend my life in a job that I didn't like just so I could afford my hobby, if I could just make my hobby my job?
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a lot of complexity in that, though, because here, it's not a glamorous job by any means. And there's a lot of turmoil emotionally, physically, that's involved with it. It's not always a safe career. It's, not safe in a physical aspect, financial aspect, or whatever, it's just not a very glamorous career. It's difficult. And that's something that I found out later in life, but that was kind of always my philosophy. Why would I spend my life in an office? I have
For
such a
sure.
hard time, I had such a hard time in school. It's tough for me to sit all day long. I was always busy with my hands. I was always active. I always wanted to be outside,
Yeah,
so all of this.
you always, I mean, like you just like wanted to just go out and do things, and you were just, yeah, like you said, like you were so active and you were very outgoing, and if not a little socially awkward, but um just, I mean, you really
Yes.
took an affinity for it, and I just continue. I just remember like even showing you were just. I mean, you were such in your spot, like where you want. It was obvious to anybody that like this is like what you wanted to do. Like being in the saddle is 110% where you belong, because that's just where you seem more as much yourself, coming
Yes.
from somebody
Yeah.
who knows you in and out like to the core.
Yeah.
For yeah, that's where 100% that's where you belong, and you could have caught that on like so early in life. Like you loved it so much.
I did. It was, it just was almost in a way an escape. I mean, it's like I lived two different lives. The school life, you gotta get your education, whatever, try to screw around in college and figure, out if this horse gig's really gonna work out or if I should be preparing for something else, you know. But the horses always came back to me, and there was a brief moment, later on in life after high school where maybe I drifted a little away from it. But they always came back, and I always found myself in some situation with horses, whether it was working for a trainer, whether it was just picking stalls. I was happier than crap to just go out and pick crap.
For sure, for sure.
you know, so in that way, I was always a barn rat. Um, and I had a and two, I had a friend group, a really good friend group that we were all involved in the horses. So, that helped as well. It helped that my friends from school, we would go and we'd do lessons together after school. I had a lot of good friends that had their own horses and we were showing together. And so that I think really helped
Hmm.
curate that path a little bit more too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what about you? How did you decide that did you have a spontaneous moment where you were going to have,
Oh
this
God.
type of career and
Yeah,
run a photography business?
I really don't know. I just remember, so grandma, our dad's mom, not mom's mom. We've been talking about mom's mom for a while, but our dad's mom, she's an artist. Like she's a photographer. She's definitely the more, she's very creative. And so yeah, she would let you and I, take her camera out for like 4-H projects, and I just loved it. And I remember dad bought mom a Canon Rebel T5 like years ago, and it became my camera. It was mine. I mean, it didn't, mom used it like twice, and I was like, nope, it's mine. And I followed you around. I didn't really start doing like the horse photography. I just kind of was like taking pictures, and I loved it. And I remember being on Instagram, well, once I got social media and seeing these people who were like going to these jumping shows and taking these gorgeous pictures of horses, jumping and doing all that stuff. And so then I was like, ooh,
Absolutely.
I want to do that. Like that's so like
Yeah.
I got a camera, and my sister jumps still because at that point
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
anymore. And so yeah, I went to jumping shows with you and Lori and everybody else, and I just was taking pictures. And it just
Yeah.
got to the point where it was like everybody was loving them. And I was getting more interest from people who were like outside of things. And I was like, ooh, this
Yeah.
this is a thing. Like this is something. And
I think, not to interrupt, but we were on that entire cusp of social media. Like,
yeah.
I feel like our generation, we're only a year and 8 months apart. And but I think for us in that generation, we watched social media kind of come to life, and it became, I mean, it blew up. I mean, in the time and the span that you were doing your whole photography thing, it blew up around that time, and a lot of
Mhm.
people were making money, and a lot of people were, it was just becoming more well known that, oh, so and so is this photographer, we're going to hire her and she's going to do, she's going to
Yeah,
follow up with them. I mean, a lot of these, bigger barns had like a little photographer that followed them around and did marketing
exactly.
work that way. And I feel like that happened at a perfect time for you.
Yeah, no, for
Because
sure. I totally
but
agree.
you might not have had the best camera, but in your mind at that time,
It was an
you're like, why
amazing
can't
camera.
I? You're
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, compared to what you have now,
Oh
it
yeah.
was one of those things where I could have imagined. I can sit back and I can imagine for you, it must have been like, well, I have a camera, Calyx jumps, we're involved
Yeah.
with horses. Why can't I do the same thing?
That was
You know?
exactly my thought process. I was like, why can't I just go out and do this? And I ended up loving it so much, and I, started taking, I started doing a little bit more research because I'm entirely self-taught. Um, started doing, a few more research on just like how to do things better, and I started, getting asked by friends and stuff to like, hey, take my pictures. Like I heard that you're kind of getting into photography, like, hey, take my picture. And I don't know, I was probably like 12 or 14 at this point.
Yeah.
And I was younger, and I just remember that it like hit me at like 16 years old that I was like, I could like generally do this. And of course, I have so many different influences in my life. I have so many different hobbies. Obviously, I'm very techy because, our dad works in IT.
I was
And
gonna say
so,
that. Yes, you have always been very tech savvy.
yes. And so I was kind of toying, throughout my, upper middle school, throughout high school of like kind of what do I want to do? And throughout high school, my brain was like, well, I'm going to go into IT. Like, yeah, the photography's fun and stuff. And, at that point, I had started like a studio. I'm going to call it a studio because that's what I named it, but it was a business-esque. It, it was a hobby business. But I had started this thing and, I was taking some senior pictures. I was kind of getting hired out for a few things. I wasn't making a ton of money, but I was like, yeah, it's cool. I'm going to kind of keep it a hobby. And then, I went to college and I was still doing the photography thing and I was, telling people, oh, I own a photography business, like I'm kind of a photographer, but it was always in the back. It was always in the background. And, I told myself going into college, it's like, well, I'm getting this IT degree because, I'm going to use it to make myself money in case I want to go into photography. Because I was already kind of leaning that way.
Sure.
And I was still very much like, I'm gonna do anything, like anything that comes to me, I'm gonna take pictures of. Like you want me to like shoot a wedding, I'll go shoot a wedding. I despise shooting weddings.
Yeah.
Um, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And so I think I finally decided when I shot, because I'd always like dreamed about being this big hotshot, horse show photographer. Once I found
Yeah.
out that horse show photography was like a big thing. And I really wanted to shoot like, some shows and stuff. And I don't know, I really started taking off and I really started thinking, oh my gosh, this is like a legit thing I can do once I shot my first show.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, shoot, here I am in IT, and going to college for IT. And I've, been taking pictures of this like 4-H show for years, our old 4-H, Worth County. Once we like aged out of it, I'd come back and I'd take pictures, and I was like, oh God. And of course, I was following around friends to rodeos and taking pictures at rodeos because rodeo photography was a huge thing too. And I
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
I got a lot of followers from rodeo photography. So I was like, "Oh my God, I'm actually starting to like get big into this." So I don't want to say that there's like a specific time where I was like, "Ooh, like let's do this." But it was definitely like a growing interest in to where I decided, and then it kind of clicked with me later than what people think that it clicked with me that this was an actual thing that I can do. I think that it really clicked with me in like 2022 when I shot the first DW show, where I was like, well,
Yeah.
here I am.
Right.
And so now I'm like transitioning out of my IT job into my full-time photography and seeing how that's going to work out for me. So, yeah,
For
but
sure.
I, so I definitely give grandma, our dad's mom, a lot of, you know, uh, point
Credit.
credit for, yes, thank you for helping me find the word. A lot of credit for that because she was definitely the one who was like, hey, here's my camera, let's go take pictures. Like, let's go for a hike and here's my camera, you should take pictures. So I give her a
Absolutely.
lot of credit for that, for giving me kind of like, for shaping me and for giving me
Yeah.
that love of it. And, you know, so yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So as far as like let's say like our customer service, because obviously you can't run a business without talking with people and
Yeah.
knowing each other and knowing how socially awkward we can both be, and the fact that I was terrible with my clients when I first started, especially people I didn't know. How did you like it finally clicked with me because I did a lot of help desk work and now I'm able to talk to people more. How do you get around like where did you learn your customer service skills?
That's actually it's a really good question. And it's not one that when I kind of fell into this, when I kind of just moved into this side of the industry, training horses, it's not something that I ever thought about. And I think, I've talked to a lot of veterinarians and they said the same thing. I didn't get into this because of the people. I got into it for the animal. And so I feel like I can share some of that with, my peers in that maybe, maybe, we're not the best people.
Right. Yeah.
I've definitely been more comfortable with animals than I ever have people. And, um, it wasn't until I started to work at the bank and I had to be, you know, I had to be cordial. I mean, not cordial, but I had to be fluent on the phone. I had to be professional. I had to maintain this, image for the business that I worked for. And that helped my social skills quite a bit. Um, I was never very good at, um, I was never very good at making calls. I remember I would always be extremely nervous
Mm-hmm.
making calls or talking to clients. And, even before I got a job at the bank, just dealing with people in general wasn't my strong suit.
Yeah.
So I feel like I was shaped in that way a lot at the bank because I was just forced into a situation where I had to do it. I had to learn how to communicate with people, and I had to learn how to um, kind of figure out this whole professional side of working a business. and
Yeah.
and there's
Yeah.
there's there's so much of that is involved in this industry in the same way that it is for any other industry. I mean, you have to some extent, be a people person,
Yeah.
and I just
Yeah.
wasn't. And so over the years, it's gotten much easier. It's just, people who are scared of public speaking. If you do it enough, you eventually
Yep.
get comfortable with it. So
Yeah.
that's just all it took. I just had to step outside my comfort zone, and I really didn't realize I was having to step outside of it. So there were a couple of instances in dealing with clients with horses that really um, made that very clear to me that
Yeah.
my people skills lacked and my professionalism lacked. And I think this is a similar situation, similar experience that everyone can kind of relate with, that, you end up growing with it as
Yeah.
it comes. So,
For sure. For
yep,
sure.
the bank was what I think hit that home for me.
Yeah. I mean, I went into this thinking that I was like fine because I did a lot of like speech and drama in school. And
Yeah.
so I wasn't necessarily, and I did like choir and I did solos in choir. So I wasn't necessarily like scared of being in the spotlight, but I was like, how do I actually have a conversation with people when I actually have to talk to them? Because it's like you go and you do these photo shoots, but there's like you can still talk to people. Like there's in between time. And so I've definitely learned how to have like small talk because small talk is a skill. 110% small talk is
Oh,
a skill.
yes, it is.
And being able to like have these conversations to connect with people, especially when, as a photographer, I am like creating this moment and I am like capturing, the bond between people and horse. And so it's like you got to learn their story and you got to learn their personality, and you don't necessarily get that just by conversing over a cell phone or like through email. And
Right.
so I finally learned, and it helped my photography too, is when I finally learned, like, hey, you should like talk to these people, Carsyn. Like, talk to people. Like, just, and not even that, like, because I've done that, I have made so many friends.
Well, right.
And,
And yeah, this all sounds, um, like it's obvious, right? But
right.
I think there is a huge aspect to when you are working with your clients, you establishing that kind of relationship, establishing a relationship in which the environment is comfortable enough to have honest conversations. And
Yeah.
that's not happened without some small talk involved, without getting to know them on a personal level.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think, every client needs to be, your best friend. And certainly you'll find that, every client isn't going to be your best friend
Right.
or your friend at
Exactly.
all. But to maintain a business and a well-run business, you have to have those types of people skills, and you
Yeah.
have to be able to make your clients comfortable
Yeah.
enough to, have that honest communication. And,
Yeah.
that honesty in a business is really what is going to excel anything. So,
For sure. So yeah, me going to college and being, with people who I didn't know because we went to school to K-12. I mean, we were with the same people every year. So going to college and like working that help desk as like because I had to, and like learning how to talk to people through, my job at the bank too, because yes, we worked at the same bank. Well, definitely helped with that whole thing. But
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So moving on a little bit, I in my business, I have taken a lot of inspiration from my horse Poppy. She's a, she's my love. She's my child. She's a gorgeous flax and sorrel AQHA mare, and I've taken a lot of inspiration from her. She's really taught me. I use her for like a lot of like my test modeling and stuff. So she's definitely like my influence for like my heart horse. She's done a lot for my business. But what about you, Calyx? You've had a lot of good horses in your life. Which one was like the one that taught you to be a better trainer? See things a little differently. Which one taught you the most?
Well, I think I think that's definitely going to be Diesel. Diesel
I
was
was
the one.
expecting Rowan. Not gonna lie, I was
Well,
expecting
so
Rowan.
well, Diesel taught me a lot. Rowan was my heart horse. She was a horse that you can't replace.
Yeah.
And I think I've gotten very lucky in Petunia, my little mare now, in that Petunia is so much like Rowan. But as far as a horse who taught me things, Diesel really took my pride away from me. I learned a lot of humility with him.
Mhm.
And he was a tough son of a gun. He was this thoroughbred that we pulled off the track, and I got him, I think I was around 11 or 12. And he broke down on the track. He had a 40% tear in his front left tendon. And so we pulled him off, and I think we brought him home. He was free, rehabbed him. We let him sit over the winter and whatnot. And I guess that was kind of during the time I also wanted, I was jumping, of course, but I also kind of wanted to do some of the speed events at 4-H. And so how cool is it that I've got this, off the track
Thoroughbred,
thoroughbred?
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought it was
He
cool
ran
shit.
like 3 times and
And he was not very impressive on the track. But he was a tough-minded son of a gun.
oh my gosh,
And
yeah.
he, anyone who has dealt with those Stormcat horses, those Stormcat thoroughbreds, they're tough-minded suckers. And like I said, I mean, he ripped my pride right out of my hands. I was humiliated all the time by him. Just when I thought I had him figured out, he'd pull some trick out of his sleeve, and he too had my number on
Oh
many of
yeah.
an occasion.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of fun on him. And he was he was the first horse I screwed up. Looking back, and this is putting too much pressure on myself, at the age I was when I had him, but that horse probably would have been better off with, someone who knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I had no clue, but I mean, that's the point, right? And so that's why he was my teacher horse
Right. We all had
to
to start
some
somewhere.
aspect. Yep. So he taught me a lot. But I got a lot of habits from him. I was just so determined to make him into something that he wasn't going to be. And I worked and I worked and I worked and I forced and I forced and I forced. And he told me no every single time, told me no. And while we could get the job done, it was never done efficiently. It was never done with ease. It never looked appealing to the judges 80% of the time. And so, I can confidently say that he was the first horse that I ruined. And, I think to be a good trainer, you kind of have to go through that. You kind of have to ruin a couple horses.
Yeah.
It's a sad reality, but you don't get better if you don't fail.
Yeah.
And, he was a huge character developer. I can say with the utmost respect for him that he really made me take a second look at the entire situation of becoming a horse trainer. And he was one of those that I was like, well, if I can't get him figured out, I probably won't be able to get,
Anybody
anything
else
else.
figured out? Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. But there too was a lesson learned. There have been a couple horses, and even still, I run across some horses that it's just, you know what, I think this horse is going to be better suited, being trained by someone else. And that is
Yeah.
just me recognizing that I am not at a point right now. um I am not as efficient. I am
Yeah.
not, I'm not where I need to be for this horse
Yeah.
to succeed the best.
Yeah.
I can't set this horse up for the most success, and I'm not going to ask a client to stick it out and me potentially ruin that horse,
Right. Right.
so
Yeah.
yeah, in that aspect, Diesel was definitely
For
the
sure.
one that taught me the most.
Yeah. I mean, and I go through the same thing, there's multiple times where I've told people I'm like, "Hey, I might not be the photographer that you want, that you need." Like, cuz
Right.
we each have our own specific, look on things and our own style and how we do things, and there's been multiple times where people are like, "Oh, I really want to do this." And I'm like, "Well, I'm sorry, but," and this is a very shortened version of the whole thing, but it's like, "I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm going to be the one who's going to be able to do that for you, but here are people who can." And
Right.
so yeah, I mean, yeah, same thing for you too. Just like, I don't think that this horse is going to be something that I can figure out for you, but
Right. Right.
so yeah, going back to like our businesses and stuff, and the fact that, as sisters we bounce off each other. um we both I I don't know if I've helped you as much as like you've helped me with like my business, but like for you being, in the position that you are as a trainer, you've definitely, like, we work together to do like your marketing pictures, and I've done your marketing pictures for years now. And so just being able to like have you there to help me, figure that out, because I was not great at the beginning when you were at Lori's and taking pictures for like her horses and stuff. That was not my best work, but I was also very new. And to like now, like the pictures that we just did of Maggie, I think those were the last ones I've done for you, are just phenomenal. So the partnership that we have between ourselves, not just as like sisters, but as businesses, is just insane, because you've definitely helped me grow, especially in like the equine marketing side of things. And the fact that I do not know horses, like technically. Like, I can keep my horses alive. I can do all this stuff. Like, I know how to take care of them. I understand, I wouldn't say basic things, but I understand. But like, you are so like, this is what you need to look for. This is how a horse should look. That it's helped me to the point where I can take that knowledge out into my photo shoots to make sure that I like deliver these beautiful pictures to my clients. And so you were like a huge help on that. So that's kind of like how the two worlds can cross in a way.
Sure, absolutely. There's a lot to that. And I think what you're trying to say is that maybe I'm offering the the client who's purchasing, I'm offering,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm asking you to consider that side of it, because you can give photos to clients all day long of their horses, that they love, that maybe they're not on a larger scale on the business side. Let's just say that it's, a client who owns a horse, and you can take some pretty photos of them, and, they'll cherish them and share them with their friends and whatnot. But I feel like I can offer like a different perspective and say,
for
well,
sure.
we've got to stop thinking about the owner here. We've got to think about who is in the marketing aspect of things. We've got to think
Yeah,
about the client who's potentially going to purchase this horse.
yeah. And the
And,
amount of, sorry, I'm gonna interject here a minute. The amount of
no, that's
times
fine.
that you and I were doing a photo shoot for like a horses and taking sale pictures and stuff, and I've been like, "Oh my God, these are gorgeous, these are amazing," and you come back and you're like, "That leg looks like crap." Like, and I'm like,
Right.
"Oh, well, I guess I didn't see it like that."
Sure,
So
absolutely.
it's
Yeah,
definitely
that
helped me, because it's like now I'm looking for that out in the wild. And my filly that I owned briefly, Chili, she was, what is that called in the back in the hocks that she had?
Well, she was just sickle hocked.
Sickle hawked, yes.
Yep.
I just last year had a shoot because we did so many pictures with Chili to do her sale pictures and figuring out how to make sickle hawk not look as sickle hawked. Um, I just had a client last year I did a mini session for, and she's like, "Oh, well, he's sickle hawked," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, Calyx has helped me for this situation." I was like, "I am prepared. Do not worry, I've got you."
Right. I mean, yeah, there's definitely an art form to this, and this kind of breaches into the whole honesty aspect of things. But when you are taking marketing photos, you of course want the horse to look, the best that it can. You're not going to hide conformational defaults,
Exactly. Yeah. But
or
you can at least make
conformation.
them look better, like more appealing without making it seem like you're covering it up. You know what I mean?
Right, right. I said defaults, I meant faults. But yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't want to take a picture where you can't see all four legs, they've got a
Yeah.
terrible expression on their face. They're trying to reach down and eat grass. I mean, you want to show the horse in its most natural form, but also, be able to present some images um, that can correctly depict the horse, as if a lot of these clients, I mean, they're seeing it from a photo first. That's how you're going to get
Yeah.
the interest, right?
Yeah.
And so you don't want your clients to show up and be like, oh boy, I mean, how disappointing is it when you see this beautiful horse on Facebook or online on Ranch World ads or whatever, and then you go and you spend all this money and time traveling to go look at this dream horse, and you get there and
Yeah.
the sucker's got a club foot or what.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't want to hide that from your potential buyers, but you do want to be able to offer the best photo of the horse at that time.
Yeah.
And I
Exactly.
feel like in that aspect of things I've helped you. But to take it back to what you said earlier, I think there's a lot of ways in which you've helped me. I mean, that maybe I haven't clearly told you, or just haven't even ever mentioned, but the marketing of the business itself. I mean, that is such an important aspect. And especially in today's age when people are just consumed with immediate gratification, and that comes from social media. We get these, we are dealing with a society that really is hooked on social media, for one.
Mhm.
And it's not like it was all those years ago where you could just put an ad out in the newspaper and people from, town were like, oh, so and so's trains horses. Maybe I'll give him my daughter's crappy pony that keeps fucking
Yeah.
her off,
It's definitely simpler
So,
times back then.
yes, and it's on a much bigger scale now, just because of how my business has grown and how the industry has also had to learn to adapt to social media. There's a lot of complexities in that. So
Mhm.
I feel like you have helped me realize that that is one of my, uh, that's an area that needs a lot of improvement. I'm not great on social media. I have a hard time dedicating time to promoting my business, and I don't think I'll ever be the person that's posting every day and is, making all these inspirational comments or whatever. And, I sometimes go through, well, why does anyone even want to listen to what I have to say? But, I think that's an area in which you've helped me understand too, is that I've watched your business grow because of your ability to market yourself. I can market horses. I can let my work speak for itself. And I think that's where I've gotten a lot of my business from, is just, the product that I'm
Mhm.
able to provide to customers. And that product is being displayed, to the public at horse shows. You know, it, but the social media aspect of things, you have to understand that 50% of your clientele are probably just people who are online. I
Yeah.
mean, how,
Yeah.
if I'm in someone else's shoes and I've got a horse that I'm struggling with, and I don't necessarily know where I need to go, if I need lessons, if I need to take the horse to a trainer, if I need help from a vet or whatever, if I am on Facebook and I run across this ad, and boy, this person who's training horses or offering lessons or whatever the case might be, they seem like they run a really good business, that there's a lot of interaction on social media. They come highly recommended. There's a lot of good um, outside reviews, third party reviews. I think that whole aspect of things, you have definitely helped me understand that I'm just deficient in. And, so in that way, you have helped me, if I've never said that before, but that has been, that's been a big one.
Well, cool. Well, I'm glad to have done that for you, I suppose. So yeah. Well, yeah, so again, I mean, this whole podcast that we've decided to do, since we're about at our time limit, is just because, it's crazy to think that you and I are, we're so different, but we're similar, obviously, because, we share blood, we're sisters. We grew up together, and we both decided to go into like this whole equine business, but we're just completely opposite. But the whole point about it is, yeah, we're completely different, but there's so many different similarities and stuff, and just being able to like hear that from other people is a
Yeah,
lot of help for people. And so we're kind of doing this to show, that we are all in this together as an equine industry. We're fighting for the same fight. We
right.
we're not doing anything different. Yeah, you're a trainer, you're in a different area, but you're still in it with me. And we all struggle with the same things. And that's kind of really the biggest thing that I wanted to do with this podcast, is just kind of show everybody that hey, you're not alone. And even if there's other equine photographers who are listening to this and are like just here because I'm an equine photographer, this trainer's struggling the same way you are. This trainer's going through the same thing you are, and it kind of gives you a different light on like the whole thing, because just having you as a sister and being a trainer, I can relate to the trainers that I work with. And so yeah.
Well, and the whole fact that we're both running a business,
Yeah,
um, that, and no one succeeds at anything simply by themselves.
exactly.
You're not gonna find success without the help of other people and without the help of your peers. And we all need each other. I mean, we all need each other in this industry, in every industry. I mean, we need to bring outside sources in, and that is what is able to allow us to succeed and allow us to just operate.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't operate what I do without a vet that I trust, that I love. I can't do it without a photographer that I'm not good with the camera. I never established that side of myself. And so I have no clue what I'm doing. And so, I need to provide that service. In the same way that, a doctor needs an assistant, in the same
Yeah.
way that, you know, we need everyone.
Yeah.
So, that's
Yeah.
kind of that's a
There's
good
just,
point.
yeah. And then there's just also, there's just so many times where you're out there and you're doing work and you're like, gosh, I feel so alone out here. Like
Yeah.
I go through that all the time, and then it's like, oh my gosh, but I'm not, um and just recently, because of like all the work that I've done at horse shows, I have come into contact with amazing photographers, and it's like now we can bounce ideas off each other. And the biggest thing that I wanted to do with this podcast is to just kind of show people, hey, again, you're not alone.
Right.
You don't have to be by yourself.
Right,
Um,
right.
you know, because I struggle with this a lot, and I've definitely come with it, and we can talk about this in a different, in a different episode. But the biggest thing is like at the beginning of my whole career, I felt so isolated, and I felt like everybody who was a photographer was an enemy. And
Yeah, yeah,
that is not it at all. Um, and I'm sure that you have kind of felt the same way, because we fight the same battle. I mean, it's such a saturated industry to begin with, and you kind of just need to find your style and to find the way that makes you special. And to have people in the industry, whether they're your sister or not, I'm just extremely lucky, to bounce ideas off of and to kind of learn from, each other's mistakes and to learn from each other's wins and, to kind of see how the other side operates. So,
100%, 100%. Yes. And, I think in a way, we are just so protective of what it is that we are trying to build. And it leads us to isolation to some extent, in that whole thought process of, um, of feeling like you're being judged rather than supported. A lot of those hindering thoughts that get in our way and are part of our roadblocks that we just have to struggle with to grow, are things that other people need to hear. And whether they realize it already or not, whether they haven't had the opportunities to understand that struggle or whether they're going through it right now, I think this is just a great opportunity to sit and listen to two girls chat
yap
and
about just random
realize,
stuff.
realize that, hey, we all we all struggle with the same thing. This is not a unique situation. What you are not special in that aspect that you are the only one struggling this way.
Hmm.
We all have, and we all will, and that's not a. I mean, that's something even someone without a business, without carrying the burden of trying to grow a business and whatever. I mean, this is just such a uniquely personal experience that everyone shares, whether it is, whether you're trying to raise kids, you know, uh, or raise strawberries in your garden, this is
Yeah.
something that I feel like everyone under the sun can relate to. So,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. So we're gonna go ahead and end episode 1. Hopefully that kind of gave you all a introduction to who we are and how we think. We definitely towards the end of this started to get a little into different topics that we want to talk about in other episodes. So we're gonna go ahead and end this off. I think next time we want to talk more to you guys about like the beginnings and how we struggled and our wins at the beginnings to kind of help shape to where we are now. So, thank you all for listening to us yap. We really appreciate it.
yeah, and we really enjoy everyone giving us this opportunity to sit and chat, and that's the best thing that me and Carsyn do together is just talk. So,
Yes, for sure, for sure. Okay, well, that brings us to the end. Thank you all, and we'll see you later.
all right, see you next time.